those mistakes are going to be because you caused them. Sometimes you will cause your own failure. When Carol was talking about one of the things I did, I had the opportunity to be a Draper Richards, now Draper Richards Kaplan Fellow, and Draper is the big VC guy, Draper. And he funds social entrepreneurs who want to do great things and who want to scale. And I remember going into that meeting to say I really wanted to be a Draper Fellow because you get $100,000 a year, you get surrounded by really smart people, and you get mentored. And what I realized going in, I was like, this may or may not work. Because my idea of success is that I wanted to be able to solve the reentry problem. That right now, over 90% of the people that are incarcerated are going to come home. Even lifers, they're going to come home. And they're going to come back to the communities they were, and what's going to happen? They're probably going to go back to prison again. Because state budgets or county budgets are not allowing them to be able to stay locked up forever. And in some cases, that's a good thing. And I said to him, I can solve this problem by going to 5 of the top 10 markets. I don't need to be in every single city. I don't need to be in 100 different places. I don't need a budget of $500 million. I need to be in 5 markets, and then they will influence the other 5 markets, and the top 10 markets have over 80% of the market share. And they didn't understand it, because they said, wait a minute, that's not what success is. Success is big and better. And they ended up getting kicked out of the program. And I was traumatized. I said, wait a minute, you're kicking me out of the program. And they said, well, yeah, because you didn't meet the requirements. I said, what were those requirements? Because we had created Office of Reentry, we had changed legislation, we had increased funding within the criminal justice sector. They said, well, because your budget isn't big enough. And I said, okay, then I guess I'm kicked out the program. And what I learned from that was that, one, sometimes you have to really stick with your instincts and go with your vision and say, you know what, even if I get kicked out, even if I miss an opportunity, it's worth it. The other piece was that scale and being bigger is not everything. As many of you have tried to define and solve local problems, there's great impact in being small. Impact is not any better just because you're bigger. And in this world where bigger is better, that's extremely important to be able to understand. The final thing that I would say that oftentimes I'm sure your parents have told you, but you may or may not pay attention, and I said it earlier, is to really be humble. That where you sit right now, as somebody who is hoping to retire really, really soon, I'm feeling really, really good that the future is in good hands. But I can do that because I'm willing to trust and know that you guys are going to take over and do a really good job. But you're going to mess up sometimes, but you're going to do a really good job. And I hope that you all are looking at the kids and the young people that are behind you, but more importantly, who are different than you, and saying, I trust that you can do as good as I did. It was amazing to me that when we think about history, and the number of hundreds and hundreds of women who've been successful, we can name successful women. But I was hard-pressed to actually find successful women in technology. And so when you think about our judge, who was the first female engineer at Facebook, well, that only happened a few years ago, right? The first time a woman was on the cover of Linux magazine was only in 2011. I mean, we still have a long way to go. But we need to understand where we've come from and where the opportunities lie ahead. The difference for you is that when I was growing up, my mom had the pleasure, privilege, opportunity to march with Dr. King, and I would say, okay, that's wonderful, Mom. How many times would I tell you about the march? That's just great. Because history changes. So we don't need to repeat it, but we need to understand it. And the beauty of the opportunity you all have is that you can actually accelerate change a whole lot faster than Martin Luther King ever could. And when you think about someone like Grace Hopper, who was the first woman in the 70s, I think it was, to actually get a PhD from Yale, and the first admiral ever in the Navy, and she actually developed COBOL, that took her like 30 years. So my hope and my faith and my happiness, knowing that the world is in good hands with you all, is because what we used to take 30 years to do, we can probably do in about 30 weeks. The ability to be able to connect with people, to find folks who can help us, is extremely easier than what it was back in the day. In that, though, it's important to not only just count on what you think, but to be able to get advice from other people. And so I always think you need 2 things in your life. You need mentors and mirrors. My 17-year-old daughter, she took that literally and went out and said, I want a brand new mirror. But that's not what I meant. You want people in your life, other than your parents, who are mentors, who give you advice, who support you, who give you that sector expertise to review your business plan or help you get your oratorical skills together or get the right shoes to match the outfit. People who are really there to support you. But what you need even more are the mirrors in your life, who will hold up a mirror and tell you what you don't see. They will point out the imperfections. They will point out the flaws. They will point out the things that you're not doing well. Because I know, sitting where you are, you're some of the most successful girls in your group. You're some of the most respected. But oftentimes the challenge is people will not be honest with you. Because you are the ones. So I would say to you, find your mentors, but also find your mirrors, because the only way that we get better is when we make mistakes. I've been very successful, thank goodness, and I'm not complaining. But when I have made mistakes, that's when I've learned the most, and it's made me more successful as I move on. And so the only thing that I really think that I can add value to you as somebody who is a parent, who is a social entrepreneur, who hopes to be semi-retired really soon, is to say, be yourself. Be proud of who you are. Know your limits. Know what you can and cannot do. Be willing to reach out to others, particularly those that are so different from you, to be able to challenge you, to mentor you, and to be your mirror. As I sat here tonight, I was going to tweet, but I couldn't get online. It was a little too complicated. I was like cuckoo, red, but I was like only at Twitter, only in San Francisco. That and the kale, whatever that was, appetizer. I was like, oh, I clearly left home. But what struck me the most out of all of this was the commitment that you all had that I really want to call out, which was to make sure that you were doing something not just for yourselves, but for your community. And that is something, I teach MBA Georgetown, you can't buy that. You can't find that. And so I had in my little talk, selflessness, but you guys already have that. The ability to think beyond yourselves and try to really solve problems in your local community, just to be able to look beyond yourselves is a huge gift that you already have. And you think about wherever you got that or whoever gave it to you, make sure that you go back and say thank you. Because I can guarantee that in 5 years, 10 years, when hopefully I can fly in from an island and show back up at the next Technovation in some glamorous location, every one of you will be there. And some of you will be there because you're successful entrepreneurs and you already cashed out. Some of you will be there because you're teachers or mentors. Some of you will be there and you're just the average college student going on to pursue history. Nothing wrong with that. Because success is not defined by dollars or occupation. So you can be an entrepreneur, an intrapreneur, you can be an extrovert, you can be an introvert, you can actually be a hermit thanks to technology. The key for me is that when I watched you all, it was so not about the technology, and it was so not about the app, but it was about the skills that nobody's going to give you credit for. It was about the skills